Hello, welcome back to art class. This week we're going to be focusing on drawing a picture that is timely because it's now becoming fall. You know, we're in the middle to late September and we're going to be moving into October shortly. So we're going to be working with a fall picture of a pumpkin because that's something that would be very appropriate for this time of year. You're going to need a few items to do this. Pencil. I'm going to be using a regular piece of paper from like a computer paper. If you have nicer paper, you're more than welcome to use that. If you have just lined paper, go ahead and use that as well. I have an eraser, a ruler, and it's not really because I need to measure anything, it's because I just need a straight edge for some stuff, and then some colored pencils. A regular set would work just fine. If you have a fancier set, you can use those as well. So the first thing that we're going to be doing in our picture is we're going to be doing the drawing of the pumpkin, and I'm going to draw two drawings. This first one real quick is just the typical way a lot of people will draw a pumpkin, and we're going to go one step past that so it looks a little bit more realistic. So on the back of my piece of paper here, I'm just going to do a quick drawing. This is typically what I see people do. They'll go in, and this is okay. This is what they learn like in, let's say, first grade, second grade. They'll go in, basically two backward C's, and then they come in and add a couple more lines, and then they add in a stem like this. And for first and second graders, that's great. It's not a big deal. Everybody knows exactly what this is, but we are now in fourth grade, so we need to now take this a step further. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you some basic things to make a pumpkin look a little bit more realistic just in its drawing. We're not going to get into the high shading and highlights and stuff like that right this second. We're just working on the basic line drawing. The other thing that we're going to need to focus on is making sure it's drawn really big. We want this image to take up most of the space, and in fact I want it to go off at least the top and partially the bottom. If it go off a little bit on the side, that would be great as well. So how am I going to start this? Well, I'm going to do the middle section of the pumpkin first. And it's actually kind of a rounded rectangle. If you've ever seen plankton from SpongeBob, it kind of has that plankton type shape. Next, what we're going to do, this is probably a little small, so I'm going to actually make it a little bit taller. Okay, and notice my edges are not perfectly straight, they're actually slightly rounded. The next one, okay, again, it's going to be rounded. I'm not going to start right from the side. It's actually going to start a little bit up, because remember, pumpkins are actually kind of round all the way around it. So it's going to be a round. Like this, and it's actually going to be a smidge higher. They're not going to be perfectly level. I'm going to do the same thing on this side. It's going to be start up a little bit high. It's not going to start at the top. Please don't do that. It's just not perfectly on the side. And to give you a rough idea of thickness, I can get 2.5 to almost 3 fingers in each of these. So I got 2 fingers in here, 2 fingers in here. I need to make this a little bit wider because it is a little too skinny. So I'm going to make that a little bit wider. So you want to at least get 2 thick fingers in there. And this one actually should be a smidge wider as well. There we go. Was actually a little too high, so I'm going to bring that down. So there's a lot of little adjustments that you're going to make as you go. There we go, there's a little bit more even. Think of it kind of almost being symmetrical, which means the same on both sides. I'm going to do another one, and it's going to be starting a little high on this piece. And again, make it kind of wide. Like this. And again, I can get about 2 fingers inside that. And make sure you're getting that nice curved look. wider. Like that. Okay. You could go another level, but that's probably going a little too far. 5 is the typical that you'll kind of see in a drawing. Then we're going to go ahead and put the stem in. We're not quite done drawing the pumpkin part, but we need to put the stem in so we have an idea. And this is where the stem can kind of go off the page a little bit. Typically you curve it one way or the other. And on this one I'm going to have it curve. I'm going to let the top go off the page a bit. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a couple of little lines that follow and give direction for the stem. Like that. And now I'm going to put in a couple of bumps in the back here for the back side of the pumpkin. They're not, you know, like big hills or whatever. They're just a couple more flattened out bumps. So it looks like it's going behind the stem. Next, what I'm going to have us do then is we're going to put the ground in. Now notice mine does not quite go to the ground. I could have blown this up a little bit bigger, but it still will work. It goes off the top. I'm going to have the ground go all the way to the bottom of the paper. And I'm going to make the ground look like it's going behind my pumpkin. And I'm not going to want to make it too complicated. So some people will, I'm going to show you on the back here, want to do line like this. This is not a good idea. This becomes a real pain to try to color around. So we want to simplify that. We still want some up and down, but we want to simplify that. So I'm going to do like individual blades of grass kind of floating up here. Not going too difficult. And I'm going to come in here and clean up my lines a little bit. Okay, now, where does the ruler come in? Well, the ruler is going to be the next part. And for the ruler, what we're going to do is we're going to have kind of a shattered picture look. So in order to do that, it's like this is a piece of glass and we dropped it and it cracked. Okay. So I'm going to have you add 4 to 5 lines crisscrossing across your paper. This is where the straight edge comes in handy. So let's see. It's 2. And you want it to go from side to side. I don't want any stopping in the middle. That's just going to cause problems. 3. Let's do one here. That's 4. And maybe 1 right there. Break up that area. I don't like that. Let's go a little bit further down. Yeah. Like that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to focus on is some coloring. And I'm only going to focus on coloring the background for right now. We will do the pumpkin next week. So just our focus today is just to get the drawing done, and then we're going to work a little bit on the background. You do not need to finish the background, but what I do want you to do is do at least, let's say, 3 large sections of the background so that I can see that you're on the right track. Because again, you're going to take a snapshot of this and send it to me for this assignment so I have an idea of if you're doing everything okay. So in the background, we are going to focus on a certain group of colors or color scheme. And that color scheme involves greens, violets, and blues. Most of you should be able to figure out what that group is called. It is the cold or cool colors. In my set of color pencils, I have 4 cool colors. I got the 2 greens and I have the 2 blues. So, not blues, but blue and violet. So the greens I'm going to reserve down here for the grass because that logically makes sense. So that means my violets are going to be reserved for violet and blue for the skies. So I'm going to start off with regular blue here, and I'm going to color here. And it's pretty simple stuff. The very first thing I need you to do is just go in very lightly, kind of outline your edge. It needs to be very light, but just make sure that you don't leave any white spaces towards the edge of each of these shapes. Okay, then what I need you to do is you're going to fill it in. Make sure your coloring direction is all the same direction. We shouldn't have too much crisscrossing going on. As fourth graders, you're striving to make sure your coloring looks neat and organized as you go. Okay, so there's our first thing. That's pretty easy. That's pretty what you expect from to do in third grade. What I'm going to need you to do next is we're going to try to go from light to dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do it a second layer to make part of it go a little bit darker, so a medium. Like that. See, it's light, then medium. And then in the back here, we're going to go to a dark. So it's like a gradation from light to dark. So that's what we do. Then I'm going to switch to a purple. And I'm going to do the same thing. Carefully and lightly outline it first just to get those edges nice and clean. And I'm going to lightly fill it in. And then I'm going to do a medium. So I should see 3 levels. Now, a lot of people are like, well, Mr. Sanders, you know, it's going to get kind of boring with just 2 colors. What I can let you do is you can go into an area. I'll use this one as an example. What I can do is then if I'm careful and I'm really good with mixing my colors with colored pencils, I can go in and do a blue violet. The other thing I need you to do is make sure that you don't make your lights and darks line up, and I'll show you what I mean in just a second. So let's do my blue, and I can mix my violet in there. So now I have a blue violet color, and it's the same rules apply. I'm going to do a medium. Requires a mixing too. And I'm going to do the dark. So you can mix your 2 colors. I would even allow a blue-green up here if you wanted to mix and make a blue-green first. But what I was talking about earlier about not having your colors, see how the dark goes this way, and this one, the dark, comes back this way. I just don't want the darks all lining up going the same direction. It won't look as interesting as a picture. So like in this one, I could make a blue-green color. If you are not sure if you can do it or you're not sure how it's going to turn out, flip your paper over to the back side, try it out. So if you're going to make a blue-green, try it out in an area. And don't just try to make it light, try to make the 3 levels. So, then you go in and you're going to make a medium. And you're going to make a dark. And if you think it's not going to look good, then don't do it. But this is a way that you can test on the back just to see if it'll work. What I want you to do is, I want you to do, let's say, about half of the sky. You don't need to do the whole picture because I want to be able to take a picture of it in progress so I can double check some stuff as we go. And then next week we'll go over how to finish up the ground, how to finish up the inside part and the stem. They're not particularly super difficult, but I want to leave that till next week because you already have enough to do for this week. All right, I'll see you next week.